Secret of the Mimic just came out, and I've already spent the better part of 2 days playing this game, and I've gotten 2 of the endings so far and wanted to try a simple challenge for my next playthrough, the no sprinting challenge. The game starts off with Dispatch asking how we are feeling, but given that the main character has just finished working a 36-hour shift and hasn't had time to rest yet, he barely has any feeling left in his legs. This proves problematic because, for one, you can't drive if you can't feel your legs, and 2, our character is limited to only walking, no sprinting, for this next job. The first thing we do is grab our data diver and head straight to the side entrance to immediately hop into the action. When we finally enter the Manor of Hell, we are met with our first of many nightmares. We have to watch a play. Unfortunately, the animatronics malfunction and leave us to move the Rocktopus out of the way and start walking towards the office. When we get to the office, I have to simulate having a stroke in real life just to get my mouse to move far enough to power the generator. While Dispatch briefs us on the Mimic that is trying to unalive us, we go straight to the security upgrade to get the level 2 badge. Dispatch tells us to turn the power back on, so we head to the power room and complete the puzzle to successfully get the power back on, and I wait patiently for our friend to greet us through the window.
Check.
Our next step is to go to the warehouse manager's office to get the security badge to level 3. So we are given the crank to unlock the gate, and we have our first encounter with the Mimic. Since we are unable to sprint, I slowly and calmly walk away. There is a short period of time right after this animation where he cannot target us, so walking away is easy. I use the lure to get him away from the door, and then I can easily walk to the next room. Then we walk down the hall and get into the elevator, which takes us to the 2nd floor, and then we get the crank from Jackie's box. I waste no time opening the gate and walking down the hallway, and I go straight into my safe space in the corner while I wait for Jackie to finish playing tag with the mailman. Jackie plays unfair and throws the mailman into the wall and opens up a hole. So I walk through and get the first of many chase sequences in this unforgiving game. Jackie is lurking in the walls, but the actual chase has not started yet, so we are able to enjoy the peace for a little while longer. But that quickly comes to an end as everything changes once we go up this elevator, and the official chase starts once we get to the top. The game gives us our first prompt to sprint, but we don't give up that easily. We put our speed walking skills to use. We round the corner, keeping an eye on Jackie the whole time, but ultimately we die. Jackie might have gotten the better of me that time, but I wasn't going to let Jackie win that easily. I have all the time in the world to come up with a strategy to win. So for the second attempt, I decided to just cut my corners more tightly and try to stay in a straight line so I'm not wasting as much time by moving my mouse around. I did much better on that second attempt than I did on my first attempt, but unfortunately, that seems to be the best I can do. After making no progress in my next few attempts, I decided to enable my sprint temporarily just to see how much more time I need to save in this part of the chase. Yeah, it was not looking good. Even if I was able to beat this part with plenty of time to spare, the next part actually decides to become more of an a-hole and the time crunch is even more severe. I was sprinting the entire time and then I stopped sprinting for just a second and I still managed to lose. Even if I was able to make it past the catwalk, this next part is still just as bad as the previous. With this long hallway, walking here is almost impossible. I'd say almost, but it really is just impossible. Even then, I still didn't want to lose, but I just kept on trying and I was not making any progress whatsoever. I was still losing back on the first set of stairs that I kept dying to in the first attempt. So I had to just give up on this one, and I had to sprint through this portion. Once I got to here, I stopped sprinting. I'm going to count it as a new attempt. So here's how I'm going to do this. Every time I hold the sprint button, it'll count as one sprint. I'm only allowed to sprint if the game makes it impossible for me to survive with only walking. So, because it is impossible to beat this portion of the game, I had to sprint to the end of the segment, and I will add 1 to my sprint total. I will try to beat the game with as low of a sprint total as possible. This part is really simple since you are crouched the whole time. Once we exit the vent, Jackie will pop out in front of us, but we can just shut the door on him to slow him down. And after having an aneurysm with this damn generator, the vent opens up and we can safely enter. Jackie continues to be a pain in the ass, and he's a persistent little bastard, but once we fall through this vent, we don't have to worry about him anymore. At 1 a.m., our sprint total sits at 1, and our next objective is to go to the showrooms by passing through the welcome room. And once you outmaneuver the Mimic for the first time in storage, then you never have to worry about him showing up in storage again. The Mimic is going to be really chill with us for a while. Most of his interactions up until the end of the game are just lurking, so we don't have to be fast, we just have to be quiet when we're near him. So we take the lift up to the top and we reboot the welcome show and we replay it so we can get the door open. First, to get to the showroom, we have to repair the elevator, so we listen for the cassette, we retrieve the cassette, we follow the instructions to repair the elevator, and then we're good to go. We're finally making our way to the casino, so we get our ticket, give it to the ticket master, and we can start gambling.
Spin! A mystery present! You might win!
So we're gonna have to earn our next 3 spins by doing the 3 mini games here, and then dealing with the ticket master in between each round. This part really isn't that difficult considering you'd probably prefer to walk during this segment instead of running. And it's also really nice just because he gives you so much time to finish these puzzles. We win the grand prize, which gives us more stress than it's worth, and then we continue to the roof. Unfortunately, while on the roof, the Ticketmaster makes his way towards us and gives us our second full chase sequence of the game. I start holding W into the fence while I wait for it to close and get as much of a lead as possible. Just at first glance, I knew the stairwell was going to give me a hard time, but I came in ready to fight. My first attempt was to see how far I could get into the stairwell, and I would leave the rest of my attempts to cut the time as much as possible. And given the circumstances, I actually made it pretty far. The exit is just right there. So I would just have to find ways to save time and get to that door as soon as possible. So I was doing my usual cutting corners and walking in a straight line when something caught my eye. Some of the railings here on the stairwell don't move along with the stairs when the stairs get pushed down by the Ticketmaster, and it leaves gaps underneath it. And sure enough, when I went to go test it out a little bit more, you can actually fit underneath the railings. If I keep spawning up at the door at the start of the stairwells, then it's going to be impossible to walk to that exit. But I've been trying to figure something out on how to get underneath that railing and land it on the catwalk underneath it so I can get to that door easier. There are 2 railings you could fit underneath, and I've been spending my attempts going underneath and trying to land on that catwalk. And here's where everything changed. Well, I still died, but did you see what changed? If I keep spawning up at the door at the start of the stairwells, then it's going to be impossible to walk to that exit. But instead of spawning me at the door like it was, it started spawning me a little bit further. And after several more attempts, this happened. I was finally able to get past that stairwell without sprinting. That was my one victory in this ocean of defeat, but we were not done with this chase scene yet. This portion is really simple as you just avoid where he's slamming his feet down into, and you can just walk all the way to the end. Once you reach the end, and there will be a hole in the floor you can fall into, and then you can crouch, and then you're not even able to sprint in this portion since you're crouched. It's really simple. After that, we fall into this area with the mannequins. If you get too close, then they make a loud noise, so we just try to be a little bit stealthy. Ticket Man's not done with us just yet, but it's not really as much of a chase as it was before. That is, until you go through this part. When you touch those 2 mannequins, then the chase starts back up again. And since we can't run, we have to try to get to the end, but it's a lot more challenging than it was before. I spent more time than I cared to admit on this portion, but the furthest I was only able to get with maximizing, min-maxing everything, was only halfway down this hallway, and there was still so much more to go. I just kept on dying here, and I even attempted to be stealthy at one point and just crouched the whole thing. That still didn't work. It was time to start testing stuff, so in this part, I just decided to run until the end of this hallway. Then I stopped for a second to see how much time I had, and he only gave me about like a second to spare. So after this, I knew walking here was going to be impossible. Since my rules say that I only have to click the button once for it to activate, I still would feel a little bit cheap if I just like use it to get through the entire thing. So I wanted to give me like a couple extra seconds of walking, make sure I could do it. But even then, it was still really hard to do. And in this test, I ran straight until the final room where I was only a few feet away from the exit, and then I stopped, and it still killed me. And just like that, I thought I could get away, but I couldn't, and I had to use another sprint to get through it. So the fight with the Ticketmaster ends there. We fall back down and end up back inside the main building near our office. But I walked away with another sprint. We're sitting at 2 now, and it wasn't really looking that good. But moving on from that, we head back to the office, and dispatch tells us that we can head to the workshops to get our next security badge level. We give the vacuum robot a head pat to make us feel better, and then we are told that we have to build an animatronic suit so we can wear it to the theater. The Mimic is here again, but it's not really much of a threat as we just have to stay out of his line of sight. There's no chasing going on here, it's just being sneaky, and we have to get the 5 pieces to build the suit. We get all 5 pieces with no issue, didn't even break a sweat, and then it's time to activate the suit and then get inside of it. The Mimic follows us here as well, but he's not really much of a threat as he can't kill you if you're inside the suit. So we just kind of spread the ball at him for fun. He can get upset, but he can't kill us. If we ever do need to leave the suit, then we could just play it calm and slow. The Mimic can't really hear us, especially if we walk. Some animatronics later will be able to hear you walk. Thankfully, this guy doesn't. The next room is also not a big deal. Really simple. We just go to the end, take the elevator up, and then we lower the bridge and get back in our suit. Our nightmare from earlier of watching the play is becoming a living reality now when we are actually being a part of a play. But it's kind of fun. We just got to shoot the little targets that pop up and we move on. The last part of the game was really simple. There was no movement involved at all, so we didn't have to worry about sprinting. But now we have to deal with the nurse. We're given a really long, boring introduction to the nurse, which just does absolutely nothing except for keep us in place for a few minutes. This first part of the nurse is just following her, making sure you stay behind her, not in front of her. Then we get into the hospital section where it's just being quiet, making sure she doesn't see or hear you. I've been using lures and traps to my advantage to get her to go into places so I can sneak behind her. We're told that we can power the elevators once we get rid of all the trash remaining. We also upgrade our security to level 5 while we're in here. I've been using the vents to my advantage to make sure I stay away from her. Once all the compacted trash are put away, we can head down the maintenance chute and we can use the trash to defeat her. The last piece of trash hits her and then we can use the door close button to close the door on her. She's gone for the time being. So that entire area was really simple again because it's just being stealthy. But now we're going into the chase scene with the nurse. Not much is different here than the previous chases. We just try to get a head start by pushing ourselves against the fence. But we don't make it very far before our first death. I was trying to bug her out in the second attempt. And I was going to hide in an elevator and see if she just managed to keep walking. But that didn't work either. The third attempt was just going to see how far I could get with just walking by using the cutting corners and walking in straight lines and stuff. Not a single thing I was doing was working, and we were not getting very far, and there was still so much more to go. So I learned pretty soon that I was not going to be able to walk here, so I decided to just finally sprint. I wanted to get to the end of this section, and then I would start walking once I got on the conveyor. We made a lot of space between us and the nurse when that happened, and we just continue walking down the elevator. We drop off to the right, and we start walking again to the left. She's not chasing us anymore, but my computer is starting to not be able to handle it anymore. This is temporary. It gets fixed soon. So we continue walking again, and then we add 1 again to our sprint total. We jump down onto this conveyor and start walking. It makes us look like we're sprinting, but the conveyor is actually moving us forward while we walk. Quickly hop into the vent, the door closes, and we make more space between us and the nurse. My computer is running hotter than the sun at this point, and I have to give myself an entire full arm exercise just to get this generator turned on. 1 computer restart later, and then we can jump down to begin the final section with the nurse. We hide behind this barrel when she first spawns in, and then we wait for her to go down the hallway. When she enters the room, she will stay in the room until we walk around the corner. You could just crouch the entire way if you wanted to. Walking is kind of dangerous. She can hear the walks unlike the other guys. So we click the button for the elevator. She will eventually pop out into the hallway and spot you, but she won't be able to make it to you soon enough. You can get into the elevator and you'll be safe by the time that happens. We're almost done with the nurse at this point. Fiona tells us that we gotta repair the elevator. We repair the elevator successfully, and then the nurse comes, and then Fiona starts fat-shaming us, and we have to do a whole second set of repairs. The elevator stops, and we're finally able to leave, and the nurse is no more. We are conveniently dropped off next to our office, where we are told where to go next.
Finally, you have access to the admin wing.
After spending the next 10 minutes going in the complete wrong direction, we finally end up in the admin wing. Well, I wish I was in the admin wing. So we have a puzzle we have to complete, and we're missing 3 pieces that we have to find from around the area, all while avoiding the mimic who's dressed up as a chicken wearing rollerblades. The same rules apply here as before. We don't really need to run, we can walk. We want to be stealthy, so we actually prefer walking in this situation, and we got all the pieces and we're able to escape. I spent way too much time trying to figure out how to actually complete the puzzle. The mimic has had so many opportunities to run over to me and catch me off guard, and after an embarrassing amount of time, we're finally able to power the gate, go through the door, and continue on to this little obstacle course wipeout type of thing where we build our own bridge, I guess. Get to the other side. I was curious to see if any of these obstacles were actually fast enough to kill me if I just stayed walking the whole time, but half of them you have to be crouched for, and the other half are luckily slow enough so you can walk. We go through the door and we get our first face-to-face meet and greet with the 2-colored tiger thing that's gonna be haunting us for the rest of the game, and now we got to deal with this cupcake portion. I almost immediately trigger one of the cupcakes to make a noise, and I come face-to-face with Party Time Chica. Luckily, Chica goes the wrong way, so we're able to take like a fast exit, straight shot to the end. Really simple stuff, just more lurking. The mimic doesn't give us any more of a hard time than he needs to, so we go up the stairs and we get through the door and we move on to the next section. We get the last upgrade that we need for our security. Now we're at max level, and then we go into the surveillance room where we do this small little bit with Chica, with the mimic. It's nothing special, it's just close the door immediately and we're good to go. Now I'm at the part I've been dreading this entire time, where we take the elevator down to the basement level 2, and I have to go face to face with the tiger in its long section. It's really bad. This is the part I've been worried about the most, just because it's not exactly a chase, but there are times where time does matter and speed does matter. And I've been thinking about the strategy going into it. So I just have to play around the lights, and I wait for my next light to appear, and then I make my move. So this first section is simple. It's really easy. They give you the lights really close to each other. The lights stay on for a decent amount of time, and most importantly, you can stay in the dark in this first part for much longer than you can in the next the upcoming parts. Very forgiving. I was able to get through it on my first try. This part right here is probably the closest call I've had in this first beginning section, when the tiger is right in front of me and my light happens to go out and I didn't get a good enough light. Still managed to survive it though. We get hit with the Minecraft Guardian jump scare as we walk towards the lever to unlock the door to get our first star plushie. I was able to end the first section with a lucky light to take me into the star room, making it so that I can finish it with no deaths. As long as we have the plushie in our hands, then we'll have a permanent light source around us, so we won't have to worry about getting jump scared by the tiger unless we just walk directly into it. Unfortunately for us though, we only get to hold on to it for about 15 more seconds before we have to put it down and begin the next section. We're able to complete that with no deaths. As we make it over to the second star, we pick it up, and now we don't have to worry about the lights being turned off as we got the light source with us. We just gotta not walk into the tiger. We put the star in its place, and it opens up the door leading us to the final section of the tiger battle. This one is a lot more difficult than the first part, even though it looks similar. The lights are more spread out than they were before, and you have almost no time in the shadows. We respawn by the star that we just placed down, and we get to keep retrying until we get to the final star. And finally, after a lot of trial and error, I was finally able to make it to that last star. The next step is to walk through these tight corridors to place the star plush in its correct spot while avoiding directly walking into the tiger. Luckily, we respawn next to the star and we successfully place it down on our second attempt. We walk up the stairs and we take the elevator that takes us up to the security office. Now that it's 4 a.m., the game gives us a choice, and if we were to take the 4 a.m. ending, we would finish the challenge with a total of 3 sprints. Unfortunately for my sanity, I take the parachute.exe ending, which contains more chase sequences, And I just
You have
wanted to see
made your
how many
choice.
sprints we would have to use to achieve
You
that
are not
ending.
going to be
Dispatch
rewarded.
turns into a whiny bitch baby from
You
this
could have
point, saying
helped.
that we'll never be able to walk our
If
way
you
out
had
of here.
just given-
We end back up in the welcome room where we have to start the goodbye show, which activates the elevator in the middle that goes straight down into the lower levels of the basement. There was another fight with the Ticketmaster here, where the objective is to flip the levers that have their lights turned on before he can reach us. It doesn't last that long, and the time you have to flip each lever is pretty forgiving, so beating this was no problem. We close the door behind us using our data diver and continue into the next portion of the game, where we have to avoid this mimic by using more stealth. There are 4 animatronic suits in total that we have to enter, and then we have to move them to the doors of the office so that the office loses its power. This portion is easy since the mimic can't attack us if we are inside one of the suits. After placing the 4th suit into position, the office loses power and we're now able to enter. We are now told that we have to go to the main house to activate communications between the robot Fiona and Edwin so that she could deliver a message. My legs started to feel tired, so we finally catch a break when Mr. Helpful offers to drive us up to the main house. After being briefed on how our life sucks, we finally enter the house where we discover that this mimic also followed us here. Nothing has changed from the previous section. We just have to stay quiet the whole time and retrieve the disc that contained the code to the door. We use the code from the home movies and use it to get into the main office, where we do this exact same thing as before with Chica, only this time the mimic catches up to us. We enter the next official chase sequence of the game, and it starts off strong by giving me another generator to deal with. Thankfully though, the mimic is extremely slow in this part and doesn't even get close to us. This next portion is just a sequel to what we just finished, and we are forced to walk down the tracks to escape the mimic. We get decently far as we only need to get a few feet past these hanging poles to enter the next section. I try using the same strats as before, where I hold W into the railings waiting for it to drop, and I cut my corners as tight as I can, and I try to just walk straight into the corners, not move my mouse much. In my first few attempts, I was completely avoiding the little pile to the left of that first corner. After I realized I could walk on it, I started using that more to save more time. Unfortunately though, I was never even able to make it underneath the pipes without dying, let alone get a few feet past it. I spent a good 15 minutes on this portion. I was never able to make any more progress than what I was doing before, so I had to give up, and I had to use another sprint to get past it here. The roof collapses behind us, so the mimic is not chasing us anymore technically. So we stop holding shift, I pull the lever to get us into the next room, and start the next portion. When we open up this lever, it also opens up the door that the mimic's behind, so he starts chasing us again, which is not really an issue. We also have these tiny little robots that are now chasing us. This part is completely memorization. I didn't understand where I was going the first few times, and then I got to nail it after that. I was saving a lot of time, and I was making a lot of progress here, but unfortunately, this section is just way too long for me to completely walk through it. This was the best I was able to do. Even if I was able to make it past the catwalk, then I would have to walk up these stairs and go to this lever and then get through this door. It was just way too much and there was not enough time. Our sprint total is now at 5, and we get to sit still here while we watch the mimic get an entire slab of metal drop into his head. Mr. Helpful gives us a ride back to the manor, and we don't have to worry about any chases until we see the van. We make it to the van on our first attempt. We couldn't complete the game including the parachute.exe ending with 0 sprints, but there were a few chases that we were able to win without sprinting. So in my final conclusion, you can beat the 4 AM ending with just sprinting 3 times, and the parachute.exe ending with just sprinting 5 times.